Welcome everybody to today's BMI webinar, Inkjet Innovations in Books. We want to thank our sponsors of today's webinar, Canon, and per usual, and just in our normal disclosure statement that we always like to say, the sponsor has paid for the privilege of being this webinar, and BMI doesn't endorse any member over another or any sponsor over another in any way. But we do thank Canon for their continued sponsorship and support of BMI. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the moderator for today's panel, which is Sherry Jamalo from Canon.
Terrific. Bear with me while I share my screen.
No problem. And if anybody has questions during the presentation, please use the chat feature that we have here in Zoom, and that will help us moderate stuff as we go.
All right. So first of all, can you see my screen?
You're all good.
Excellent. So first of all, thank you all for joining. We're very excited to be here today. It's not quite like being in person, but at least we get to have some conversations amongst our members today. And I think we have a really good content today to discuss with you. And it's really all about inkjet innovations. And I have some of your peers that are going to talk to you about that. So let's begin. So just a quick overview of, well, the book publishing industry has really found a new level of equilibrium, and printed book sales have increased during the pandemic, with unit sales up 8.2% in 2020. So the business model for book printing continues to change. There's shorter runs, there's higher job frequency, and days rather than weeks turnaround is the new norm. So today we're going to talk to you about the opportunity, what some of your peers have done over the last year, as well as previous, to make sure that they're able to deliver on time, quality books to their customers. So what we are going to do is first, we're going to do a quick overview of the companies that we're going to be talking to. We're going to give a little bit of a value statement of what digital brings to the table, as well as Inkjet, and then look at the growth opportunity as it related to, well, last year, as well as what the outlook looks like moving forward. And then we're going to do a deep dive into automated workflows, which is essential in today's business. And then we're going to share some words of wisdom. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A. And we are hoping that you are going to open up your lines at that point and jump in and have conversations with all of us. So we can certainly make this interactive as we approach the end. So with that, I would like to introduce the three gentlemen that are joining me today to join in the discussions. They really are the discussions. We have Todd Roth, Vice President, Core Publishing Solutions. We also have Joe Upton, Vice President, Business Development at Gash Printing. And we have Clark Matthews, Chief Technology Officer at Independent Publishers Group. So with that, I would like to welcome Todd to talk to us and give us a little overview about Core Publishing Solutions.
Good morning or good afternoon. I trust you can hear me, Sherry?
We can hear you now.
I just want to thank the BMI and Canon for putting this together. I hope we can shed some value this morning. Just a little bit about Core Publishing Solutions. We're a Thomson Reuters business. We're located in Eagan, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis, St. Paul area. We've been in the book business for over 100 years. And we are morphing ahead with our business. We have been an offset company that had gone down the road of zero make-ready presses in the 2000s. And we hopped into Inkjet maybe a little later than we would have liked to. We hopped into Inkjet in 2015. And today as we sit, we will do somewhere into 13, 14 billion pages, about 25 million books, and 25% of it is in Inkjet in both cut sheet and web. And if you want to know kind of what's that niche or what's unique about us, Because we're in that professional space with our own publications, lightweight paper, high page count, decorated covers is something that we've really pushed the limits on. And as you can see in the lower right corner, we continue to make investments in this book business and are really looking forward to servicing customers across the spectrum of web and digital. With that, I'll turn it back.
Well, thank you. And so I would now like to turn it over to Joe. If you could just tell us a little bit about Gash. I think you might be on mute.
There are a lot of people on this call that would probably prefer me to be on mute. So I joined Gash really last summer, and as the screen says there, we're an all digital full service book manufacturer. So we, I think, coming from my offset background, we're very similar to Malloy or Edwards Brothers Malloy in what we produce. It's 1-color, 4-color books, hardcover, softcover, saddle stitch, coil binding, but we do it all with digital printing equipment. And it's a mix of toner and inkjet equipment. We acquired our first inkjet press back in the summer of 2016. We now have several devices on the floor, and we can pretty much do, as I said, any book that any book that most publishers can produce. And I think what we'll get into today that we find with Gash is it's just the flexibility and speed with which digital printing allows us to produce books is pretty exceptional. The other thing about Gash is that we are located inside of a distribution facility, a company named Brightkey. So we're independent companies, but we operate inside of one of their facilities, which enables us to provide storage and fulfillment services to book publishers.
Well, thank you, Joe. And so then that leads us to Clark, IPG. Give us an overview of what you folks do. And I think you are on mute as well, Clark.
I thought that Matt was controlling the muting stuff. It's all good. Now
It's all his fault.
Right?
I'm letting you speak when it's your turn.
Okay.
I mute you like around the horn. If you say something wrong, then I'll mute you that way.
Got it. So IPG is a Chicago-based family-run business. We actually just turned 50 this year. It's something that my dad started in the 70s. And the most important thing about us really is that we're not exactly a printer. Mostly what we are is a distributor. And it's impossible to talk about distribution without spending half an hour on it, really. But I'll just try and summarize. We do all the sales and marketing and warehouse operations for a couple thousand client publishers. And what we can do with that is in aggregate function like kind of the Rebel Alliance. You might see some Star Wars stuff behind me, in fact. But a collection of little publishers together gives us the clout to call Amazon on the phone. In fact, Jeff Bezos used to call us back in the 90s with his credit card. But anyway, we're a collection of little publishers, which together has enough voice to act like basically one of the big 3 publishers in the United States now. In 2018, with the demise of Edwards Brothers Malloy, we actually jumped into digital printing as well. We had a little print cell in our facility for a while, and that suddenly stopped being a thing. And so I jumped in, and a couple years later, with a few $1 million in new software and hardware, we're on our own. And we have a all digital print facility. We do about 40,000 units of Book of One variable trim a month, and another 45,000 of short run digital printing on our mixture of inkjet and toner devices. And so hopefully we're here to stay. We've learned a lot.
Well, thank you for that as well. And so as you can see, we have 3 totally different companies, all manufacturing books. So I'm sure you're seeing some synergy amongst your companies and can relate. So we've got a lot of good information to share with you today. So here are our illustrious speakers. And we are just going to have some discussion points, at least I will have some discussion points with them to start the conversations going. The first thing is really all about inkjet, of course. Canon is a inkjet press manufacturer, so we love inkjet. Long story short is that based on our experience, we understand that when purchasing technology, there's always a capital strategy plan in place by every company. So, but you know, the past couple of years, those strategy plans have blown up because technology has really taken hold in some new advances. So I'm curious as to why each of you in your companies entered into the world of inkjet. So Joe, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to mix it up a little.
Well, I think one of the primary objectives, and this was back in 2016 prior to my arrival, was just the capacity that inkjet brings to the table that is orders of magnitude greater than toner. So it was being able to produce more books in the same amount of time was a driving force. And I think in the last few years, the quality of the inkjet technology has improved to the point where in the past there were compromises. And not that it's the same as offset or toner, but it's much closer now. And there's a general acceptance level in the market. But I would say that the primary motivator was capacity.
Thank you. And Clark, how about you at IPG?
Well, for IPG, it really was all about volume. A year and a half into IPG's printing experiment, we just saw that we had more orders than we could really handle. And we needed to think strategically about how to move forward. And it looked to us like a high capacity roll-fed inkjet device would be the way to go. They obviously can produce a lot more books in an hour than a little toner press can. They also do it a lot more cheaply than a toner press can, so that also played into it. But the other thing here, and this is really more of the strategic vision for IPG, it's the source of the volume that was concerning for us. In the early years of our program, a lot of the volume was print to order stuff, book of one stuff from clients who didn't ever want to have inventory at all with us in our warehouse. They simply wanted to print a book when the order came in. They didn't want the overhead of stock. And that was great. But then in 2018, 2019, we started getting offset refugees. We started getting publishers who, for a variety of reasons, one thing might just be delays in the offset printing business. Another was publishers who didn't feel anymore like they had overhead to put a lot of cash up front for a big offset run. And we had a lot of publishers who found themselves needing to or wanting to transition away from an offset and inventory style business. Now, what that really meant for us, again, had to do with the inkjet press, because a roll-fed inkjet machine can be offset-esque. It's never going to match a 20,000 unit print run in an offset press, but at quantities of 1,000 or 2,000 or 500, the value proposition is those shorter turn times at a only marginally higher unit cost. And so IPG kind of sees the inkjet devices as a way to transition our clients away from offset printing, just to be honest.
Great, thank you. And Todd?
Well, I'm going to show my age here a little bit. We were on a route back in the late 1990s on Canon's 8090s for digital web toner production. At the same time, then in the 2000s, we had the zero make-ready web offset presses. So we were hitting short run in a couple different ways. We really saw that inkjet just optimized the operation. And so it was a pretty quick jump into both digital cut sheet into the web space, where it started out as really an expense savings, and it gave us greater flexibility to move work for customers. And now it's morphed into a growth phase to support our customers.
And here, if I jump in on something Todd said, Todd, you mentioned this the other day when we were talking, is you also see inkjet as a it allows you to focus your ZMRs, your offset presses, on quantities, their optimal quantity. So they're not drifting down into quantities that they can do, but that's not optimal for them. So it helps you utilize your capacity much more effectively.
You're so right, Joe. I mean, we were going below, 500 copies on our Timson Zero Make Readies. And that's not the most efficient. That sweet spot's probably around 3,000. And so we are really able to migrate that, to optimization much more readily.
Yeah. And I think what I would, and that makes, from my background, that makes total sense. But I think for GASH, what we're seeing is that the publishers that are kind of looking at their, segmenting their work by quantity bands, that they're looking to us as, yeah, you're 500, 1,000, 1,500. I've got a lot of that work, and I want you to do that. And it helps them, and then it frees them up to focus on where you're strong. So it gives us a slot in the market where we're strong. That and it speaks to what Clark was saying earlier.
From a labor perspective, and during the pandemic, of course, that was always a concern. So how has that impacted all of you as it relates to being able to get the work out with the necessary people on the floor?
Well, Mike, the quick take on that, I think the challenge is more in the bindery, not and less in the press room. One person can run an inkjet machine, or so it's more the challenge on for labor is in the bindery.
So that leads us into the next area, the opportunity, where you think moving forward, now that you have inkjet, you have digital, some of you have some pretty sophisticated workflows in place, which we'll get into in a bit, but where do you see moving forward? So we hit the pandemic, the demand changed, manufacturing changed. Where do you see this moving forward? Because you probably have seen a shift in the application. So, well, what are you forecasting for your companies?
Maybe I could start with, the pandemic has changed things a bit here. While I've been bullish on, inkjet, and obviously with some investments we've made, we're certainly going to be there in that space. But I've been really excited to see what's happening on the offset side as well, as supply chains have changed around the globe, and the opportunities that exist, in North America today, not just on the inkjet side, but the full spectrum of conventional printing as well. So it's an exciting space in which a lot of people can play in different segments to support customers. Anybody have anything else to add to that, Clark or Joe?
I would say that really what the last year has done for IPG in its digital printing is kind of come about the death and then the rebirth of the SLA. The SLA for us was always the albatross around our neck, right? And the problem with it was the easier to produce stuff in this longer run usually had a longer turn time, 5 to 7 days. These are just publishers who eventually need 500 copies of something or 1,000 copies of something. And then the really tough thing was that book of one production, which also happened to be usually print on demand, on demand printing. You had to be able to do it variably and on a 2-day turn time. And so you had really unprofitable work needing to be done on a really fast turn time. And the question was, well, how do you ever make any money on that? How do you not just do it to make a client happy? But things have changed there. In the last year, the whole idea of SLA changed, in part, I think, because a lot of my customers, we work with companies like Amazon and Barnes and Noble, the ordering changed and the ordering due dates changed. And now I have book of one production that isn't due for 6 weeks. And I have very strangely, sometimes 1,000 or 2,000 unit, oh my God, the offset printer blew up, emergency short run orders that need to be done in a day. And it's really changing what SLA means for us. On top of that, I think that, you know, as publishers have moved away in part from on the offset side and moved into digital printing, I think maybe expectations for turn time are changing a little bit, right? Publishers maybe in the back of their mind are saying, well, this was going to be an offset run that took 2 months. Now it's a digital printing run out of necessity. Do I need it done in 5 days? Does it matter? Right? So SLA has been challenged this year and seems to be reorganizing. And it's actually been great for me, and very interesting just to see how industry expectations have been changing.
And so I think that that's a really good lead in. So thank you for that, Clark, for that information, because I think that what you're about to show us from an automated workflow perspective is going to really hit home based upon what you just talked about. And so what I would like to do is I am going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn the screen over to Clark. Clark has just recently implemented a very sophisticated automated workflow that has helped his business significantly. And I won't steal his thunder, but he is going to walk you through the advantages of what this technology and workflow has brought to his organization and the outcome of that. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Clark, if you could take the screen and run with it, and hold on to your seats, folks, because this is pretty amazing.
All right, are people seeing a shared screen?
Yep, we can see you now.
Okay, and at this point, I think that I have to preface this. I actually had a hidden agenda for this BMI conference. I've been desperate for the last couple of years to see how other people are dealing with workflow issues and software issues at their print centers. And I still haven't seen a lot of insight from others. So I'm going to go ahead and show all my cookies, and I guess I'll let you guys judge me for what it's worth.
So you're going to be our insight today.
So here we go. Conveyance is a software application that I've worked with Canon to install in the last year. And really what Conveyance is the respiratory system of a printing operation. So on the one hand, it's breathing in your ordering information, your product data, and your print ready files. With the help of your IT department, you need to create a XML file that the Conveyance system ingests. And then it exhales that content to the printers that you have, on the paper that you need, on the impositions that you have, in the quantity that you need. And it does so on a massive scale. You click a button and the jobs flow through. It is automated enough that it's nearly involuntary. It's like the beating of our heart, maybe the way our chest rises and falls when we're breathing. That's the level of automation we're talking about. So here is how Conveyance looks in its most raw form. This is basically stream of consciousness data coming in from XML, right? From that XML framework. You can see a ton of printing data here. And what I'm going to do is use the Conveyance user interface to start making sense of this data. And in that process, I hope to show you the true power of the application, at least for a company like mine. So on the far left, we're seeing here the priority column, priority 50. What does that mean? Very hard to say. But if I click on the priority column, it sorts smallest to largest. Now you can see I've got some priority 1 jobs and some 50. That's neat, but it's not really the whole picture. If you control click on the column, it groups. And now you can see that I have 24 priority 1 jobs and 820 priority 50 jobs. If you click on the priority 50 header, we're back to all that work again. And again, Pandora's box is open. We need to do some more work here to organize media. You can see that I've got a hodgepodge of different paper stocks here on the manufacturing floor. If you click on the media column though, it alphabetizes it. And if you control click on media, it groups it. And if you click on the header, it collapses the group. And now you can see some real stuff. In priority 50, I've got 70 50-pound white jobs, 540 60-pound natural jobs, and 210 80-pound gloss jobs. I've also got a smattering of priority 1 jobs in 50-pound white. Depending on your operation, even this amount of information could be actionable, right? This could be part of your own intelligence for how you're deciding what to do that day, that moment. But moving on, we're going to dive a little deeper into 60-pound natural because there's a ton of jobs in there. And we still have some work to do. You're going to see next here, we have color. And color really refers to the color of the interior. And you're seeing here a ton of black and white interior work. Interesting enough, but of course, if I were to control click on this, actually just a single click on this first is going to organize it alphabetically, and a control click groups. And now you can see I've got 22 color jobs within my 540 60-pound natural jobs within my 820 priority 50 jobs. And now more magic is present. Note the device ID column here. The device ID column tells you what printer is going to be used for what job. And so we can go take a look. Conscious Awakening, the interior here, is going to be sent to the C10000. The C10000 is IPG's color high capacity toner device, one of 2. And that device has been chosen automatically behind the scenes by Conveyance because Conveyance is smart. It knows that a color interior book is going to need to go to our cut sheet color toner device. It does it automatically. Conversely, go down here to black, our 518 black and white interior jobs. Here you can see for this interior, that is an unfortunate name. For that interior, the device to be used is our color stream. And that's been chosen because Conveyance is smart. It knows that black and white interior work on that paper stock is gonna go to the black and white inkjet device that IPG has, the color stream. It's all happening in the background. We're gonna move ahead. You can still see now that in the format column, we got a mix of formats. You probably still really wouldn't want to batch something like this down to your printers. So click on format, and you can see I've taken the liberty of grouping already, the control click, and you can see we've got a group of large jobs, a group of oblong jobs, and a larger group of small jobs. Very helpful. Now you can almost see how you might start sending some of this to a printer in a way that's efficient, but there's more magic because come look, the oblong format here. Why is it oblong? Well, Conveyance is smart. It knows, actually you can see myself here, can't you? It knows that the trim size of this book is 8.5 by 8.5. And I don't know about your operation, but to me, that's a square, and squares are oblong. And oblong books get imposed on the JDF ID column here, 2 up oblong. Conveyance is smart. It knows that the device in question, the C10000, is a cut sheet device running on 13 by 19 paper, and it knows you can only fit 2 oblong-sized books at a time on each side of that sheet, and so it's doing it for us automatically. Similarly, the small format here, you'll see in the JDF ID column, 4 up. Again, Conveyance is smart. It just knows. It knows that because the trim size is 6 by 9, that anything 6 by 9 or less, you can cram 4 of those on a 13 by 19 sheet that's going into a cut sheet device like the C10000. All right, moving on. Laminate, we're just gonna breeze through it. I've already grouped. You can see now that I've created my gloss group and my matte group. I think many printing operations would prefer to segregate and separate covers based on the matte or gloss laminate because operators get awful unhappy if you alternate one job to another on the same stack of covers. That's just my operation we're talking about. Now, the next one to me is the most interesting, batch type. I've grouped now on batch type, and you can see that I've created a separate subgrouping here, a new kind of batch here. And the first one we're seeing is long. And long, as you can see in the copies here, corresponds with our larger jobs. So why am I doing this? Why do I care about keeping the larger jobs separate? I don't want this to make noise. Here we go. The answer to that question is that our HT1000. What you're seeing right now is our BQ480 binder binding at full tilt. My operator is just going in there with reckless abandon. He's just pushing the blocks in there as fast as he can. And what you're going to see is a device like the 480 can overwhelm the HT1000, the input into the HT1000. You can't just do this. You can't, if you've got a longer run job, this is going to crush the machine. What that means is that you really can't single stack. You want your binder to be fast. There it goes. It's done, right? You want your binders to run as fast as they can. You don't want them thinking about how fast they should bind or not bind. And the way you solve for that is by double stacking. If you double stack content into HT1000, you reduce the congestion into the cutter by half, and the problem is solved. And so what is happening in the long batch type is my operators are getting batches of work where this quantity, these longer quantities are separated out, and they know to double stack this work. It prevents that congestion, but it's deeper because in addition to that, we'll go back to the video. You can see that our HT1000 has a laser reader. And what it's doing is it's reading a barcode that's on the covers. Conveyance is placing barcode information on the cover of these books with variable trim data. And some of that data is for stack height. The HT1000 needs to know whether or not the book is stacked 1 or 2. And it does that because of the batch type here being chosen as long. Conveyance is smart. It's operating in a way that doesn't just affect the printing operation, but it starts to affect the intelligent bindery as well. A few more things to show off. The first thing is to jump here into 80-pound gloss. 80-pound gloss in the onesie batch type, in the black and white interior. It's interesting because there's more magic here. First of all, what is onesie? Why is there a onesie batch type? For us, onesie is quantities of 1 to 3. Uh-oh. And quantities of 1 to 3 are imposed specially when it comes to a sheet-fed press. And in this case, you can see the JDF ID is the 1-up 8.5 by 11 type. And that has been chosen because the device ID here is IPG OSE1. That is one of our smaller scale cut sheet toner black and white devices. And that's been chosen because conveyance is smart. Come up to the top. This is an 80-pound gloss black and white job. IPG doesn't have enough quantity of this paper stock to offer it in rolls. We only offer it sheet fed. And conveyance knows that. So it's selecting the sheet fed device and then selecting the correct imposition for the correct batch type. It's the kind of thing that just makes the operation run twice as fast as it would otherwise. So now, I'm almost ready to send this to the printer. The way this is organized now, I could send this out and the content would flow through just the way I need it, except for one last rule of thumb, which is that before I send out work, I like to organize it by trim size and spine. And in conveyance, if you option click on columns, it does that. You can see now that trim size is organized smallest to largest, and within the trim size, it's organized smallest to largest on spine. This is a big deal because after printing in the bindery side, the incremental change in trim size and spine means the mechanisms inside the HT1000 trimmer are going to move incrementally. That's going to make the HT1000 faster and probably also eliminate some of the wear and tear on the machine over time. Very powerful. Now, at this point, I would press the release button, which is actually just below my screen here, unfortunately. And what would happen is that these jobs would be sent just how you see it here, in just this order, exactly to these machines, exactly on this imposition type, and it would happen automatically. You could press the button on a job 10 times this large, and it would just go, and you could walk away. And in the meantime, you might need a paper copy. In my operation, we also need a paper record of what's happened. If you need that, click on the paper thing here. Conveyance will now export to spreadsheet for you automatically that same exact work, and it even creates an intelligent batch ID. We just sent 80-pound gloss, black and white interior in small trim size with glossy laminate in the onesie batch type. It's powerful, at least for an operation like IPG's. So the payoff in all of this, right? Obviously, the nice thing is that covers and interiors go to the printers automatically and in the right order according to the correct imposition and device. Really importantly, the quantity information for each job and the media, right, the paper to be used for each job is also communicated to the printers automatically, which means that all operators are doing now is loading paper into the trays or rolls, right, into the roll-fed press. And what that has meant for IPG's bottom line is that we were able to more than double production to 85,000 units last year with no new operator hires. And in fact, we could reduce 2 supervisor positions out of this. And that's because at a company like IPG anyway, there was a need for a kind of quasi-technical IT guru, blue-collar expert who operated the machines through the sort of halfway completed software that we had at the time. And conveyance entirely makes that kind of position redundant. And it's actually one of the core reasons why the solution for us has been effective. Final thing I'll say about this, all that work we did to make conveyance batched like this and organized like this, if you leave the application and come back in, it will remember where you're left off. You don't have to go through that process of all that grouping each time. You create the system you want, and then you move from there. All right, so that's it. I hope that was useful for everyone.
Thank you. Very much appreciated. You made it very understandable, and we appreciate the demonstration on that. And so before we jump into Q&A, I think we have a couple minutes left just for some words of wisdom from each of you to your peers. I mean, each of you has such a unique business and have had so many different experiences, and your customers might be a little bit different in your applications and your shops. So your words of wisdom, Todd, if you could share that to your peers within BMI.
Absolutely. Hey, I'd first just like to thank Clark. That was really super cool what you shared. And to do that in a peer environment is really outstanding in moving our business and our whole book production forward. So that's an awesome workflow, Clark, and thank you for sharing it.
My pleasure.
The thing that I would say is it's a surprising time. I mean, we really felt like this move towards inkjet has been exciting. It certainly helped us serve our customers. But one of the most interesting ahas we've had in the last year has been we still have a number of customers that don't really want inkjet yet. And so it really is one of those things that is a good challenge for Canon and their competitors and how to keep improving print, and for all of us to be able to get better at being able to share that with our customers and then corporately together, you know, move down this inkjet curve that is making such a difference in the whole book publishing industry. So I think that's interesting.
Thank you, Todd. And Joe, who you are on mute.
Sorry about that. No, I'd like to echo what Todd said just towards Clark and thank him for his openness and candor and sharing the conveyance software with us and how it works. A lot of people want to keep their cards really close to their vest, and I think we all benefit by kind of sharing this kind of information. I think the thoughts I have to add are to picking up on what Clark just showed us. I think workflow is extraordinarily important, and I think that is both the challenge as well as the opportunity for printers, digital printers, is if you can effectively manage your workflow, you can, and thus you utilize your equipment efficiently. There's tremendous opportunity both from an efficiency perspective, but also from a customer service perspective. The other piece of it is, I think, with inkjet, it's been true of digital printing now for 15 to 20 years. it's managing expectations. And I think one of the nice things today, amongst the publishers versus say 10 years ago, is they're much more comfortable with digital printing, whether it's toner or inkjet, than they were several years ago. A lot of that has to do with the advancements in the technology, but also a lot of it is just familiarity and the willingness to accept certain compromises along the way. But I think that just being upfront and managing expectations, this is what it'll look like. Your 4-color image will look like on a match sheet on an inkjet press. And if you're looking for offset quality on that's equivalent to a gloss paper, it's not going to happen. And this is nothing new, but I think to me, personally, I've felt in the last 11 months that is managing expectations is more forefront in my mind than it was 10 years ago in the offset world.
Good words of wisdom there. And Clark, besides your words of wisdom on automation, which was awesome.
I will really just echo mostly what Todd and Joe said. I mean, especially in an operation like ours, we've got a mixture of toner and inkjet equipment. It's not so much that the inkjet output is bad, it's just that it's different. And if you have a situation where you're producing 1 or 2 books on a toner device, and then those same books later on the inkjet device, and your customer is getting those books all together, they're going to ask questions potentially. And the language that we need to answer those questions, at least for me, is still in development. It's a path that I have to lead some of my customers down to. I'm not sure I quite expected it, but it's here, and it's not the end of the world, but it's here, and it's a conversation that appears to need to happen, actually.
As we evolve. And so I would like to open it up for questions to the audience. And I know we had one during Clark's presentation from Damon. And so Clark, how is priority set? You could get into that a little bit.
However you want. So I think that a lot of people have some kind of a customer service team who gets calls and emails all day long from angry clients. And you start needing to rush work, right? For a variety of reasons, you need to push work out fast. And as a way to handle that, my customer service people can type in to a system, hey, this needs to be rushed. And that information flows to the XML that I started with. And that XML simply includes that priority data. So for me, there's just integration between the customer service team and what they're doing, and then what the XML is telling conveyance to do on its side. You can also modify work in conveyance. So let's say that there's a bunch of work that's getting late. You can highlight all the jobs and then change the priority within conveyance if you don't want to go back to the XML layer.
And also, Damon expands upon the question, digital decoration of covers. Is it ready for the trade market?
I would say yes. I mean, but when he says digital, are you referring to inkjet? Are you referring to toner? I know for us, on a gloss basis, we're with toner. When we've got those uncoated stocks, we're using inkjet. So it really depends on the material itself for us.
So inkjet, he expands inkjet decoration, spot coatings, cold foil, etc. Any comments here?
Yeah, I think so. Like spot coatings, we're not
spot
able to,
coatings. Yep.
Yeah, we're not able to register to. So say you wanted type to be a different treatment than the rest of the cover. You need, for us, we don't have an image to register to. We would if we had a plate in the process. So there is that limitation there. There may others, Todd or Clark may have a way around that.
So when in the toner, those that we're doing toner, we then can go on to do cover enhancement, raised imaging. So we're doing that today. Yeah.
Any other questions out there? Feel free to open up your mics and speak up. You can join the conversation or you can type them in. I know you have the questions and we got the experts here.
I shudder when you say experts. We're all learning.
You're our experts for today.
So-
I'm sure we have
so,
experts in the audience as well.
I'll ask a question just because I've heard it from some of our publisher friends and through a few other organizations, but just from a trends perspective, what are you three seeing in terms of order run lengths? Are you seeing them currently rising or currently shrinking with your clients?
I'll jump on that. Actually, I don't think we're seeing a trend, but we're in a narrow band where it's a couple dozen up to 2,500. So it's, I don't think there's a trend for us, but Todd may be seeing something because he also has offsets.
I'm kind of the offset guy here, I think, and we're seeing run lengths rise. So a little bit on both ends of the spectrum, but definitely we are seeing some longer run lengths.
Whereas Clark, you're on the shorter run lengths, short and some long.
Yeah, but I think in the last year, we've seen a lot of development on the longer run side. Like I said before, there was something like offset refugeeism, or maybe just people looking for long runs, but not offset class long runs. We've seen a lot of pickup on that part of the business in the last year.
Any other questions out there?
Damon, go ahead and
Yep.
unmute Damon. And
within your conveyance system, can you set priorities differently for covers versus interiors if there are additional steps needed for cover production?
I think that we're going to have to address any further details in the conveyance system privately.
Okay. The other question is coordination of work in process from press to bind. Any special tools or good tips you use to make sure your work in process is coordinated between press and bind? And this is a question to any of you.
I can just share part of our journey of do you work off of the cover or do you work off of the text? I think there's a decision to be made there and how you move that work. We spent a lot of time thinking through that one, and we're still evolving that with this growth of equipment. But at the end of the day, you certainly don't want to be chasing around looking for covers and how that flow comes, as Clark was sharing in his presentation. So I think that's the place that we've really narrowed our thought process around, is how to minimize that whip as we align our work.
And then we did get a question from Brandon, and he asks, on your web inkjet, are you going roll to roll or into cutting folding? What drove that decision?
Well, we're cutting folding, and we're coming out stacks. And I think it's just the flexibility that it allows is the primary motivator.
Anybody else have to interject on that?
We've chosen to go inline into book block finishing.
Yeah, we're in line also.
And what drove you to that decision to go inline?
Bravery.
Love it.
And it worked. Todd, how about you?
It has worked though. I mean, And I love Clark's answer. I mean, we had a lot of conversation about that. It's a big decision as you're buying a box, and we had pros and cons list, and there's days when the book block finishing isn't what you'd like it, and you've thought about the heartburn. But I think at the end of the day, if you surveyed our team, we do it again. We do inline.
For sure. It was terrifying at first, but then once you get used to it, it's fine.
Well, these have been some good questions. Anybody else have anything out there? I know you want to know. Well, it appears we have provided you all the information that you needed today. We hope that you enjoyed our session. We hope that you found it very informative. We have these three gentlemen's email addresses, although I will tell you that this is Joe's email is incorrect. I saw that, Joe. We did correct it on my slides, but anyway, so Joe's is just remove the Joe in front of his email. So it's jupton@gashprinting.com. Correct, Joe?
Correct.
Great. And feel free to reach out to them or myself with any further information. We enjoyed our time spending our Friday late morning with all of you. And we're looking to seeing each and every one of you in person, hopefully sometime real soon at one of the upcoming conferences with BMI. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, Sherry. And don't forget to register for the BMI Spring Management Conference that starts Monday, May 3rd. And it is a series of webinars that goes over 2 weeks, but we've got a great lineup. So just check the bmibook.com website for that and make sure you register before May 3rd. Thank you all.
And it is a great lineup. So we're looking forward to seeing you all as well.
And I'll send the recording out here later today or Monday at the latest. So
fabulous.
thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.